Hello everyone. In today's video, I'm going to show you how I made a quilt block USA. I love it. It's super cute. So if you followed my last video where I made the flag out of my 2.5-inch scraps, well, I have so many scraps left that I have plenty to make USA quilt block. So if this is something you want to do, let's get started. Alright guys, so let's get all of our items that we need to make our quilt block ready. I am using 2.5-inch squares. I had leftover squares from my last project, which was the flag. So I'm using 11 red squares, 11 white, 12 blue, and 29 background colored squares. Alright, so you'll also need your iron, something to iron on. I'm using wool mats, and you'll need your interfacing. I'm using Pelon 820, or if you don't want to do it the interfacing way, you could just lay out your design, follow ours, lay it out, and then sew it together by rows, okay? Alright guys, so I have my scrap pieces of interfacing pinned down with some straight pins to my ironing mat, my wool mat. Then what I did is I took my scraps and cut them into 2.5-inch squares. I did red, white, and blue. So in this project, I'm going to be making a wall hanging or pillow, whatever you want to use it, as a giant quilt block that says USA. All right, so right now I am laying everything out on my scrap interfacing. I'm not sure how much interfacing I'm going to use, but I have the interfacing butted up next to each other here. See, it's two pieces, and I'm just going to lay my blocks over it and press it with my hot iron. So I have my iron. I'm using a small iron because it'll be much easier to press these blocks with a small iron. So all I'm going to do is start to press some of these down. So at the very bottom of my USA hanging, I am doing a row of blue. It's a light blue. It's kind of like a border. Okay. And then I'm going to start writing USA. And I'm going to be bringing these blocks down and doing it row by row. And you need to make sure that when you're pressing these squares down that you're lining them up. We need to line them up this way and this way. Okay. I'm just making sure that everything is lined up. It doesn't have to be 100% perfect. Now you see this one is a little bit of a gap here. What you can do is just peel this block back up and relay it back down where you want it. There you go. It's nice and straight now. So we want to keep our rows nice and straight, and then we will press them. Okay, so there is our first two rows pressed onto our scrap interfacing. So let me sit the camera down, and I'm just going to let you watch me as I move my blocks down and press them. All right. right, so I have my blocks all ironed down. So as you can see, I have a little bit of this interfacing left, and I'm going to trim that off now, okay? So let me trim that extra interfacing off. All right, so now, there we go, guys. Isn't that cute? So let's see what it measures. It is 23 inches by about 17 3/4. 17 and a half. So it's about 17 and a half by 23 inches right now. All right, so here's the back of it. And all we're going to do is take it to the sewing machine. So in case you don't know how I sew these together, once I press my blocks onto my interfacing, all I'm going to do is fold this row up. And I usually press it with my fingernails. Okay. And then I'm going to take it to the sewing machine and sew 1/4 inch seam here. And then we'll open it, and then we'll do the next row. We'll fold it up. Sew 1/4 inch seam allowance there. Open it up. Do the next row, and we'll do this until we have all of our rows in this direction sewn, and then we will turn it and we will flip it up going this direction, okay? And then we'll sew it 1/4 inch seam allowance and sew on all the way through. But what you need to do is when you sew your rows the first direction, so once you sew your 1/4 inch seam, then you're going to come back and you're going to clip the seam in between each block, but you're going to make sure you don't go past the thread. So you're going to clip it so that when we sew it this direction, we'll be able to nest our seams. You can't see it right now because I don't have it sewn, but let me see if I have one that I've already sewn. Okay, so here is one that I've already done. So as you can see, we sewed 1/4 inch seam, then we clipped it, and then when we folded it this way, we were able to nest our seams perfectly, and that way everything lays nice and flat. Okay, and that's how it looks on the front. Of course, this is a different design, but it's the same process, okay? So let's take our USA to our sewing machine, and let me show you how I am going to stitch it. All right, guys, so it doesn't matter which direction you sew first, either way. Okay, so I'm going to sew the long way first. So I'm going to fold the first row up, making sure that it's straight. It's not crooked. I'm not sewing it crooked. I need to make sure I'm sewing it nice and square. I usually just take my fingernail and kind of press that seam, keep it from rolling. Okay, so let's sew this and clip it so I can show you how I do that. All right, so we're going to sew a 1/4 inch seam allowance, just like you would, even if you didn't have interfacing and you were just sewing blocks together. You're going to do a 1/4 inch seam allowance. All right, guys, so there it is. I have it sewn.
Now, I told you we have to go in between the blocks. You can see where this is a block and this is a block. You can kind of see it through there. I don't know. But we are going to snip it right there in between the blocks. So let me roll this around so you can see it better. So I'm just going to take my scissors and nip it right there. And that is how it's going to look. Do you see that? That is so that when we go the other direction, we can nest our seams. And everything will lay nice and flat. All right. She's got to look for the space in between the squares. And you're just going to snip that area. Okay. So let me show you, just as an example. So this is how it looks. See that? So that when we go this way and we sew our USA this way, now we can look at this and say, okay, let's nest our seams. So it's just like as if you were sewing your strips together after you sewed them. You would nest your seams when you put your rows together. Well, it's going to be the same thing, but this is a lot easier because you don't have to worry about your fabric moving. You're just going to nest them and then stitch 1/4 of an inch that direction. And you're going to do that all the way down. All right. So let me finish sewing the rows. All right, so now we're ready to sew it the next direction. As you can see, we sewed our seams all one direction. We've snipped in between the squares so that we could nest our seams. So that's what we're going to do now. We're going to start sewing this direction, the short side. And we are going to nest our seams as we go, okay? So let me sew it the next direction.
All right, guys, so as you can see, you too can make this USA quilt block. It's so easy, so fast, and we love to use up those scraps, don't we? Well, if you made the other wall hanging, the flag one, as you can see here, the USA and the flag are the same size when you hang them like this. So you could put USA and then hang your flag straight down, and that could be a wall hanging. Or you could make more than one flag and put USA in the middle and then add some fabric on the sides of the USA and maybe make a wall hanging like that, or a quilt. Well, guys, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye-bye.
Like and subscribe to Grandma's channel. Like and subscribe to Grandma channel.